Hello traders, John at StockBookie.com. Today we're looking at the SPY, the IWM, the Qs, the DIA, the IYT, and the USO. We follow the daily, the weekly, the monthly time frames, and we use technical analysis here at StockBookie.com. Last couple days I haven't made a video. I was out traveling, actually in New York City. Had a great time, met a lot of great people, and here I am back at it. Love this stuff, guys. Love to teach, love to try to figure out where these markets are going. So the last 6 days we had some pretty good volume. Market's been going chopping up and down, up and down, up and down, a little bit irrational, and that tells me we're possibly making a top. We did make a top right here, and we tried to attack it last couple weeks, got above, but now we have an upper trend line in here connecting the top here to these lower pivots and coming into a price about 215 or 218.51. We talked about the 20 MA in the last couple of videos curling down into price, and we talked about this bearish pattern below the 20 and the 50 that it could possibly play out. But eventually, last week Options X kind of blew it, didn't even think about it. We had a couple stocks just out of control, a couple stocks that fell like no tomorrow, but ultimately Options X is the real shark week. They made stocks go up and down, so these institutions do not have to pay the premiums on there. That's their goal in Options X week. That is the real shark week in my opinion. But going back to the daily chart, we talked about this inside bar. They tried to attack it, came right back in, chopping around. So right now we're just chopping around. Remember, it's a bearish pattern. We go down and sideways. That's setting up for possible lower prices. And then we talked about the 20 MA here coming down into price. If that goes into price, then we're going to see how this thing reacts, or do they try to push it up and try to recapture that. Ultimately, if you are bearish, you need to keep consolidation, then I think we can possibly go lower. We still have a couple trend lines here that we have great support. The 200 MA is curling up. But at this point, we're going in a bearish manner. These are starting to curl down in the price, and we're going to see how it reacts. If you're bullish, you need this to get above the 618 or 216.86 area and to recapture these 20 and the 50 MA, and then possibly we go to gap fill and into this downsloping trend line. That's going to be the real test. If it can get above that and get above the 219.60, then we'll definitely go to the 220, then ultimately 224 to 225 area. But again, if this pattern fails, we'll probably go up. If this pattern plays out, we're definitely going down. We have a couple gaps down in this area. We'll see if we fill it. But right now we're just in a slightly bearish stance, but at this point with this up and down action, I've seen this before back in, I want to say, I'd have to look, maybe 2010, where we've been just irrational moves and then we started heading down. So be very careful in these markets, guys. Don't try to guess if it's going to go up and down. In other words, don't get cute. If you're trying to catch every bounce, everything, just stick with the position and go with it and know where your stops are. Weekly chart, again, we're right into gap fill, 20 MA, they held it. If I'm more bearish, I would have loved to have seen a close below this red bar, but they held it. So right now we're going to look for consolidation on this one. If it does, it will be down, sideways. That's a bearish pattern, but it's still slightly in a bullish manner because it's above the MAs. And that's really the only reason. I mean, it's up here. I like this inside bar that it's starting to form. So again, each day is going to give us a new piece of the puzzle. We'll take it as they come. Monthly chart, we had a nice reversal. We're still have to wait until the end of the month, another 2 weeks or so. If we close below this doji candle, then I think we could get possible some more follow through. But again, the elections are coming. It's really what the institutions want this thing to be. I think they're shaking people up and down, making money. One guy pushes it up. We write calls or put on some puts. Goes down, they cover them. Goes up, they do the same thing. Just rinse and repeat on these. Let's get into the Qs. Q's a little bit stronger. We had Apple moving up. We had a couple of the big names going up. So this one's trying to follow suit. This one is the stronger one of all the indexes. We did come up. We filled the gap yesterday. So right now we're above the MAs again. See how it came back down? They pushed it up, chopped around, then boom, they brought it right back up. So that's their goal. They got to keep it above all these moving averages, because that's what technical analysis people think, that technical analysts think, oh, it's above the MAs, it's in a strong position. Sort of, I mean, we have pretty good volume, but come on, I want to see it close above here, fill this gap, and then maybe if it attacks the 118.78 and gets to the 120, then I'll be slightly on the bullish side, but I'll still be bearish. If it gets up into this area, if you're not short, I would definitely add it and then use maybe 125 as a stop out. But right now, it's just irrational markets going up and down. Try not to play it. If you're long, just make sure you stay above the moving averages. Ultimately, if you want to get above the 118.78 and then recapture the 120 area or the all-time high, then it could possibly move higher. If you're bearish on this one, you need to close below the 20 again, get below the 50 MA again, and then let's see if we could get below these little pivots here, and then we'll go from there. But see that? They filled the gap here, blast off. Apple had some news, with the iPhone 7. A couple of other stocks, like I said, were launching, so that caught a nice bid. This one on the weekly, though, we did engulf this downside red candle, so that is slightly bullish at this point. We're going to have to see what next week brings. If this is bullish, I want to see some follow-through, and I want to get above the 118.78 area or the 120 area and continue up with some volume. That was a nice volume candle. Someone came in here and saved the day and did a nice little buy program to get this thing going with Apple going. Everyone's excited. Apple's moving, so hey, just buy Apple, buy everything. Everything's going up. That one we'll talk about later, Apple. So monthly chart Q's strong. Like I said, if I want to see I want to see a close above this 118.78 on a monthly chart. Then I think this one can continue up. If it doesn't, then we'll watch for patterns, see if we can possibly get some lower prices. IWM. IWM was it the IWM pretty much followed the Qs. It was one of the stronger ones. Let's look at the daily chart. Look at that, though. We're still in an inside bar bearish pattern. We're below the 20. They did recapture the 50 MA, but it's still going down and sideways here. That's a bearish pattern until it gets above the 20 MA and this pivot here. Then I'm still in a bearish mode. If we get up here and it fills the gap and it continues up, then I think we have a little more upward momentum. I want to see more volume in here. But next stop, it's not too much. We have the all-time high, then we have a gap fill up around 127.59, then we have pivots around 126.79. So right now, this is still sitting in a bearish stance. It was bullish up here until we had this nice little sell-off. Then it's chopping around, but not like the Qs. I want to see this thing come up, move up. If these markets are so strong, let's get going here. Weekly chart, same thing. They did close it above this candle low, so slightly bullish. But again, we have a down move, down and sideways now. That's going to be a start of a bearish pattern. We need more evidence, so it's a little bit early, but we'll keep an eye on this pattern to see if it plays out. But we're still above the 20 and the 50, so technically it's still bullish. Monthly, still need to get above the 123.43 on a closing basis. We'll know in a couple more weeks if it does close up there. If you're bullish, you needed to close above that area and above this pivot from the last month. If you're bearish, you need to get below the 250 retrace or the 120 area and then close right here below that low of that candle, and that will be more on the bearish side. But technically, you're still above the MA, so it's still in a bullish stance. But again, it's just moved up on low volume, so just got to keep an eye, wait for patterns, and see where this thing goes. This is another lagging indicator where everything else is at highs. This one should be at highs and then some. This one should be the leader, not the lagger. I've been talking about that for at least a month now. The DIA, same thing. This one's more the weaker one. This one's like the IWM. But again, we're down. Now we're moving sideways. We're moving sideways above the 382 retrace, setting up to possibly have lower prices. We talked about this on the SPY where the 20 MA keeps curling down. It's going to curl down in the price, and that could possibly send this one lower. If they want it to go up, they need to pop it above these 250 MAs, fill this gap, and then possibly get to this 185.52 pivot. If it gets above that area, then it's slightly more bullish. Right now, it's a 50-50 shot. We're still waiting for pattern. Next week's going to be pivotal for these indexes to see if they continue sideways, and then the MAs come into price and send this thing down, possibly to the 200 MA, possibly the gap fill around 173. Like I said, if you're bullish, you need to get above this area and keep going. If you're bearish, you need to keep consolidating and then possibly moving down. Month or weekly chart. Weekly chart, they closed it right above the 20 MA, so it's technically they saved it. Technically, they closed it above the low of this red candle, but again, we're going down. We're starting to consolidate sideways, so we're going to keep an eye on this pattern to see when it develops, and then we'll reevaluate these. But right now, it's technically bearish, but it's still above the MA, so it's technically bullish, if that makes any sense. It's a 50-50 shot at this point. We got to wait for more evidence on the daily charts to see what that pattern sets up. And as the weeks go by, we got to look at the weekly and decipher which way it could go on the weekly. But ultimately on the monthly, we got up. We never closed above this green candle. Now it's reversing. Now see how this one's below this area? On the monthly chart, it needs to stay above it. If it continues down, especially if it closes below the 177.15, closes right on top of the 20, then I'm more bearish. So again, we have 2 weeks of the monthly, so we got to wait for that one. Let's get into the IYT. This one's another lagging indicator. Let's go to the daily chart. So the daily chart, here we go. This is setting up pretty nice too. Down sideways in a bearish manner below the MAs now. This 20 MA, just like the other ones, will start curling down into price, and we'll see if that sends it down. A lot of times, though, it will curl into price, and then they'll try to gap it up over it and then bring it right back to the highs. But we have a gap. We have some other areas here where it could fill. But right now, technically, it's in a weaker stance, but it's still slightly bullish because it's above the 200 MA. But again, we got to just wait for pattern on that one. Weekly chart. Weekly chart's not bad. You know, this is a nice inside bar bullish pattern. But when this thing popped up and never stayed above and came right back down on that Friday sell-off, and now we have a little bit of follow-through. We closed below that red candle. We're still above the 20 MA, the 50 MA, and the bottom low of this big green candle. So technically, it's still bullish. But that's what you're looking for. If you're bullish, you want to see more up move. We need to recapture this high. Then I think we could go to these levels here, about 150, 151. If you're bearish on the IYT, which I am, you want it to close below these 50 MAs, below the low here. Then I think we're on possibly to the 132, 133 area down in here. But again, we're waiting for pattern. This is still a nice bullish pattern inside bar. But if it starts breaking down, it's going to start falling fast and furious, in my opinion. We get more volume too next week. We'll see what happens. We had pretty good volume here on the weekly, picking up. I mean, look at this. We had boom, boom, and each time it's going, we get a little more irrational moves. We're getting more volume in here. So we got the bulls and bears going at it. Monthly chart, we're still looking as a bearish stance, which I'm in. We're still looking for this thing to close below the 20 and then this blue line here. If it closes below that, then I'm expecting a little bit lower prices. But we're looking to the weekly and the daily for some better patterns to see what we're going to see what happens in the next week or so. But again, on the monthly, we're looking for a close below this. If you're bullish, you need to get above the 20 in this blue line. Then it's still slightly in an inside bar bearish pattern, but this pattern here is slightly more on the bullish side. So it's a 50-50 shot. Either way, we got to wait for some more evidence on the weekly and the daily. Now the USO, this one's been epic. We traded this thing twice. The SCO we took, and then we shorted the USO as well. And man, we shorted right. We started shorting right here at the MAs, and we added rest here, and I'll show you why on the weekly. Tells us a little more. Pulled back, covered, hit this line, or actually the 618, came almost to this pivot. We had the $10 level too, which is the big even number. Popped back up, gave us a trend line now. Popped right back up into this big breakdown bar. Couldn't handle it. Right back down. We covered short USO, added short USO. We took the SCO up when this thing was, well, actually SCO down. When it came up, we took the SCO again. Gosh, you can't ask for any more. And it's really all in the weekly. When we were coming up into the 50 MA, boom, straight down. Coming right back up into the 20 and the 50 MA and this big breakdown bar. Just too much resistance here for this thing to handle. RBC was telling everyone to hop on. Look at that. We're right back to almost the lows where they told everybody to hop on. So everyone who chased it up here, they're holding the bag. And this thing's holding on for dear life. I keep saying it's going lower. We're going to have to see how this thing sets up. Let's look at the daily one more time. Yeah, daily's in a double bottom. So that's why I think some people are actually, wow, no, this thing's technically confirmed underneath this trend line here. So now we're looking for a bearish pattern. Let's see if these things can curl down in the price and send this thing lower. We had a couple talking heads wanting to go long on CNBC. Let's see if this thing holds double bottom. And I see why they're doing it, but then you have a gap fill down here at 976. If you were to go long, this is your area gap fill right here. If this does not hold, you're going to have to exit this thing we're probably going to go right back to $9, 920 down into this low. But ultimately here, this thing's setting up. It's slightly bullish, but we're below the MAs again, and now we close right on this double bottom. This thing's going to have to bounce, and the market's going to have to go on Monday next week. Again, monthly chart, big bearish pattern, inside bar here, setting up to go lower. My area, if the market starts to tank, 646. Mark that down. All right, guys, thanks for watching my videos. God bless. See you on the charts.